free to come off mute and just butt in, because sometimes we miss things. So we don't have to be super formal about it. Before we get started, we do like to have a round of introductions, and I will ask people individually to give their name and organization, and we'll go around the room. So I will start with Bill Threlfall.
Bill Threlfall, Waterfront Action.
Robert.
Robert Kidd. I'm a interested citizen. At one time, I was the chair of the Jacqueline Aquatic Center, so I have some interest or some history in connection with the Estuary Park plans.
You, Naomi.
Naomi Schiff, Coalition of Advocates for Lake Merritt and Oakland Heritage Alliance.
Rick.
Rick Rickard, Bike East Bay, and some affiliation with the Park District.
Hazel.
Hazel Tesoro, OPRF, or Oakland Parks and Recreation Foundation.
Terry.
Terry Fashing, acting division manager for the Watershed and Stormwater Management Division, and DD Bond Manager, acting.
John.
John Bowers, on the Agenda Committee and Lake Merritt Institute.
Calvin.
Hi, good evening. Calvin Howe, Oakland Public Works. I'm the acting division manager for the Project and Grant Management Division.
Myra and Bob.
Myra Redmond, Agenda Committee, Lake Merritt Institute, and Weed Warrior.
And Bob Redmond, Community Action Committee for the Essex, and the Lake Merritt Conservancy Coalition.
Jenny.
Weed Warriors, Lake Merritt Advocates, and Lake Merritt Conservancy Coalition.
D.
Rosario, East Bay Regional Park District.
G. Harold.
Good evening, Gerald Duffy, Public Works Director for the City of Oakland.
Welcome. James.
James Van, Coalition of Advocates of Lake Merritt, that's got this all started. And also with the Homeless Advocacy Working Group.
Jorgen.
Apologies there. Jorgen Blomberg, I'm a principal at ESA. I'll be presenting supporting presentation for Estuary Park, and I can also chime in on Peralta Park if Rebecca so sees.
Report to me afterward.
Kent.
Hi everyone, my name is Tan Liu. I'm a project manager and landscape architect from WRT. Yeah, we are here to present project updates for Estuary Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan. Luis. Louis.
Hi, Louis White. I'm a coastal engineer with ESA, working on the Estuary Park project, and I'll be presenting with San tonight.
Vince.
Hey everybody, Vince Geronimo, resident, live next to Lake Merritt. Interested in Measure DD for about the last 3 years, so I can join when I can. Thanks.
Rebecca.
I'm Rebecca Dower, and project manager in Public Works and Project and Grant Management on the Peralta Park replanting and the 7 to 23rd Waterfront Trail.
Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Reed. I'm with Oakland Public Works Project and Grant Management Division, and I'm the project manager for the Estuary Park project.
Welcome. Petra.
Hi there. I'm Petra Marar. I'm a landscape architect in Oakland at PGA Design. Kind of just
stepping into this meeting to catch up on where the Estuary Park project has been at, as we will be jumping back into this project for the 90% CD set. Our scope is specifically on planting and irrigation design.
Great. Drew?
Hi, I'm Drew Cowan. I work for the Henry J. Kaiser Center next to Peralta Park, and I'm just here to learn more about what's happening there.
Great. Louise already said. David?
Hi, David Wofford, co-chair of the Rotary Nature Center Friends at Lake Merritt. And my camera may go on and off tonight, but I'm with you.
Thank you, David. And Yue? Yue who? All right, well, I will, if you ever want to introduce yourself, please feel welcome to. So I think we had, before we began, there was a talk of two things to be added to the agenda. One was the, well, Terry, if you wanted to introduce them, probably do a better job anyway.
Right, actually, three things. I apologize. 3 updates on 3 projects that are active. The Estuary Park project, the 10th Street Bridge project, specifically the wetlands and other mitigation projects that are remaining, and the 7th to 23rd Avenue, 7th Street to 23rd Avenue Bay Trail segment. We're going to give a little update on that. And so I don't know if this is possible, but there's this update on Lake Merritt water quality that we can make be quite brief to make more time for these 3 updates, since the Lake Merritt water quality project is not a DD project. So
I move the addition of those items to the agenda.
looks like Jenny has a question.
Yes, I'd like a very brief update on what's happening on another project that isn't a DD project, but we've been paying a lot of attention to it. And that is the repair of the DG paths of the lake along Lake Shore. So I'd like to add that to the agenda as well.
And it was a DD project originally.
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
Right, that is on my, yeah, I'll tell you what I know for that. For sure.
I accept that friendly amendment.
Oh, I have a question. Would it be appropriate to hear about an update on the bathrooms over behind the garden center?
Is that a DD project?
That's not a DD project, and I don't have information on that project.
Thank you.
I'll call the question.
Second. What we're waiting for.
I'll be the first to cast a vote. Aye. No.
Adrian, you're muted.
Sorry, I was wondering what was going on. So I think that's all fun. I think the first item on the agenda was a discussion about in-person meetings. I know a couple people have things to say about it. Places we've looked at, Myra, and well, Mandolin had something to say about the garden center as not being suitable. But Myra, do you want to talk about the space that you looked at?
I went to the Uptown Station or the Square building on Broadway. They have a very large event space, and they're set up for hybrid meetings, but it's really too big for us. The minimum number of people they will accept is 15. And tonight we could go there, but a lot of time, especially if some people are not present, I think that's a lot. You can't book for an ongoing booking. They open the space up every quarter, and they're now open for January. So we'd have to, try each time. And there's a refundable deposit of $250 if there's food or drink. But if we don't have any food or drink, then it would be free. And they are set up to use Google Meet. They don't use Zoom. So I think it's probably a little beyond the scope of our meeting.
Terry, I would love to ask I wasn't here last meeting, but I would have asked this: can we get an update from Mike had various rooms at the city that were available. That was some years ago now, so I guess it would be nice to know what options the city could provide that we wouldn't have to outlay any funds or.
Sure. So that could be an action for next time to find out, to look into different rooms that could be used. And are people interested in doing that downtown at City Hall or something? I don't know if it's possible, but.
I mean, I think that would definitely be an option. I know some people are worried about the parking there, but.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to throw out an idea. I've been to a number of meetings at the Sailboat House at Lake Merritt. I think that's a really nice meeting room, and I don't know what's involved in making it available to us, but I think that's a really nice location, and it's great from the parking standpoint.
Yeah, I'll check into that. I think they may charge us to use that room, but I will find out if it's available for this type of meeting.
Okay. I think then that's, so we don't really have a location for January lined up yet. Like if we can figure out something before the end of the year, maybe we can send out a note about it, but I think I feel like it's going to be unlikely we'd be able to do January in person, given our current state. So I think at this point, I would hand it over to you, Terry, for your overall report.
Okay. Share my screen. Hold on. Okay. So just giving an update on administration, we are getting continued support through from Oakland Parks and Recreation Foundation. Thank you, Mandolin and Hazel. Also, thanks, Adrian, for volunteer support with administration and Measure DD. And Mike is working on some map is doing some map work and we'll catch up on that this winter. So moving on to the Lake Merritt category, just noting that the Lakeside Green Street project is completed. There are remaining funds being used for post-construction irrigation work and closeout items. That's ongoing. The decomposed granite path around Lake Merritt, I did not receive an update until today on that project. So it's basically what it says here, but I did get a bit more detail, and that is that they're working on extending a contract so that they can enter into a contract to perform the work. The quote came back for over $600,000, and there's a $300,000 budget. So with that amount, with $300,000, they are only able to address the worst sections of the path that needs to be repaired. Also, redoing the whole pathway down to the base would require design plans, engineering, permitting, and ADA work, which would probably exceed $1 million. So that's the update I got from a new CIP coordinator working in facilities, Hank Fan. And so I think now that this has been assigned to this new CIP coordinator, this should move more quickly as soon as we get the contract in place. So that's the update on that. So moving on to Lake Merritt Channel. And this is where I think if everybody agrees, we could go ahead and have Rebecca Dar give an update, or Calvin Howe. I'm not sure who is doing it, but we could get an update from the project management team. I will let you know that there was for some time that we didn't have a really dedicated project manager because Rebecca Dar was needed to be transferred to work on some urgent contracting matters for the city for Public Works. And now she's back in action as the project manager and has been working hard to address the issues at Lake Merritt Channel improvements at 10th Street. So you want to go for it, Rebecca?
Sorry, Terry, before we jump, sorry, Terry, Rebecca, James had his hand up. I missed
sorry.
it.
James.
Yes. With regard to the walking path, I would suggest that we just lay down lightweight concrete and just get it over with. Very simple material. It's already engineered. We don't have to go through all the, I mean, I'll leave it at that. But I think we ought to just do a lightweight concrete and just be done with it.
Okay. Well, I will share that comment with that team. Thank you for that input, James. Okay. So Rebecca or Calvin?
I'm going to let Rebecca give the update.
So good evening, everyone. The issues within the park adjacent to the Kaiser Center is severely impacted by the homeless encampments within. And despite over the last 2 years, the city has closed down encampments 5 times and done cleanups throughout, what they call deep cleaning throughout. So for a total of 9 times in the past 2 years. Each time, however, the encampments return because, of course, the entire site is not secured. The one area we did secure in the spring of 2022 is the area that has the red Google Map dot in it, the wetlands area. And that has been very helpful in preventing encampments within and deterring a lot of the homeless activities that were occurring in there. But as of today, the worst homeless encampments are throughout this park, all along 10th Street. And until the city can resolve public safety issues within this park, the final replanting and the final work within this park can't move ahead. So there have been several meetings starting in September with the president, boss of the city council, along with other representatives of the institutions around there. You've heard that Drew C. is coming from the Kaiser Center. We've had Laney College. We've had Oakland Contemporary Art Museum. We've had the Oakland Unified School District and the Lincoln Recreational Center folks all weighing in on their concerns for this. So it's hopeful that a resolution for this park will be achieved in the next meeting is scheduled in early December. And we've been asking for clear direction as to how the public safety issues would be addressed in this particular area. And the budget for the public safety issues is roughly 1.2 million, and the funding has not been secured for that. So the issue of what will be done and how it will be funded will hopefully be clarified, and clear direction will be given as to what the city is willing to finance for public safety in this park, and to permit Public Works to finish out the planting work that needs to be done to close the permits that are still open relative to the 12th Street Bridge construction and the 10th Street Bridge construction. James, you have a question?
Yeah, Rebecca, when you say public safety issues, does that include a proposal to just fence the areas like we did the big area? And if not, has that been considered, just fencing those areas off again, like we did, just continue the fencing that's already at the...
Yes, that is what I have put forward, because without that kind of complete fencing off, so when I replant, or when the city replants for these permits, the everything that's replanted is supposed to, it has to be monitored and reported on for the next 10 years. And it has to show a survival rate of at least 80%. And with the homeless encampments in the areas that are circled in red and beyond, they're, without securing those sites in a meaningful way, replanting we'll never be able to close those permits at this site. So, Adrian.
I mean, I have to say it's going to be more than fencing, because people have taken over the paths and underneath the both bridges, basically.
Exactly. The bridges are great camping sites, and the encampments are, you know, just everywhere, and at such high density and very destructive, really, for what's been, you know, planted previously, and for some of the historic trees in there. So hopefully this will get resolved by the city, but the fence would essentially fence in everything from the 12th Street Bridge down to the 10th Street Bridge, And both bridges would become gated underneath to prevent encampments under the bridges.
So thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm going to move us along. Does anyone else have any other questions? This is very challenging, and Rebecca, I just want to commend you. You've been doing an amazing job of pulling folks together to discuss this, and also to cost things out and to come up with different scenarios and proposals. So it's been really great.
Thank you, Terry.
But we are we're still in the process. So to the DD Community Coalition, we will come back to you once we kind of come to some sort of decision at the city. Go ahead, John.
Just quick question. Does will the fencing that you're talking about, as it pertains to the underpasses beneath 12th Street and 10th Street, eliminate the ability of pedestrians to use those underpasses?
What is being discussed, John, is the possibility for night closure for this entire area, that it would be open during the day, but at night everything would be locked up. That
I got it.
It's a dangerous path at night. It's unusable and impassable right now due to the encampments under the bridges and throughout the park. So the intent would be to, close it at night, close it before dark, and make sure that there are no homeless people that have decided to set up camp during the day.
But it would be open during the day.
That's the intent.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
David?
Thanks. Thank you. Just want to quickly be sure I follow this. There have been several meetings, and there is a $1.2 million public safety measures budget that's currently unfunded. So, but there was a plan that came up to somehow a broad plan somehow arrive at the $1.2 million figure. I'm assuming that includes this idea of a fence. That's what I've followed so far. So the one question I have right now is to refresh my memory, who paid for the current fence? How was that paid for?
I was paid out of Measure DD in hopes of protecting the wetlands and being working with the environmental agencies to present this as the highest resource that the city is doing everything to ensure that this wetlands and the uplands are thriving, and that the issues of homelessness outside of that was beyond any scope of public works, or it was just something that we as the entity holding these contracts could not respond to, because we've already fixed irrigation several times. They've replanted. And so the issue of homelessness is a much bigger city policy and how they're going to respond to it. And so, yes, that 1.2 million is looking at the fencing. It's looking at possible special security lighting, video cameras, and then of course for the shutdown of the camp at night is security service to lock up the gates and make sure that nobody's spending the night inside.
Right. And so thank you so much, everybody. And we'll continue working on this issue. And regarding the Measure DD funding that we have left in this funding category and, under Series D, we will just have to come back to you and with our proposal once we are there. And also we will be reaching out to the city attorney with questions about how bond funds can be spent on these sorts of things moving forward. Also, Rebecca didn't say this, but there's, the water board we're under a permit issued by the water board, and they're saying that once we replant, that we might have to monitor and report for 5 to 10 years. And that is very difficult kind of thing to pay for using Measure DD funding. Go ahead, Harold. Mr. Duffy, thank you.
Sure, thank you. I want to be very clear. We were actually meeting with a number of community coalition groups, as Rebecca mentioned earlier, including the school district, other organizations regarding trying to address this serious issue. And it's very important that we try to come up with a strategy to sort of reclaim this area. And one of the things that President Bass from the council and the city administrator's office wanted us to do was look at all avenues to be able to try to fund this solution. And so one of the things I want to be very clear in terms of why we are here tonight. One of the options that we are looking at and wanted to get some feedback from the Measure DD group was the ability to tap into those resources that Measure DD has in order to help us accomplish our goal of securing this area.
Right. And we do have some remaining funds in this category, and we do have available funds once the Series D funds are sold, which we're not ready to do that yet, but we wanted to, just let you all know that we're looking at spending more Measure DD funds on this project so that we can get close out those permits. I'm not sure whose hand went up first here.
David did.
It's David, Naomi, James, and then myself.
Thank you, James. I just wanted to ask that, that maybe I can reach out to Rebecca and become included in the some of the discussions around from the broad standpoint of the impact there, principally because in our teaching people about the marshlands and engage them in the stewardship process, there's one of our fundamental purposes at the Rotary Nature Center. And so we spend a great deal of time on the ground there with students and others. And so in terms of planning for reclaiming the area, we'd like to try and weigh in a little bit.
Absolutely.
Sure. No, I have stressed the educational opportunities of this entire site and that it has been used so much by the Rotary Center and the different school groups and your weed warriors and things.
Naomi?
Yes, I think that I may be wrong about this, but I think that we still don't have an extremely clear statement of funds that are now or will be available. And we're going to keep that.
Yes, absolutely. And I have been meeting with the city's finance department now a few times. They have hired a bond manager specifically for infrastructure projects that are funded by bond funding. And they are going to be helping me. I'll be meeting with them several times before our next meeting. They're going to be helping me. This person's name is Stephen Acker. He will be helping me develop a Measure DD Series D conceptual expenditure plan. And I need his input and assistance to be able to come back and present to you. And I will be inviting him to the next DD meeting. He and I will be working closely with the city attorney to flesh out any issues regarding like questions about how we can spend remaining funds and how we can move forward with selling the Series D funding. So I just wanted to give you that update that I absolutely need to more time to work with the city's finance department. But now that he has completed a lot of tasks that were on his to-do list, he has time to work with me so that we can get everything all sorted out with regard to Measure DD and planning for Series D bond sales. So who was next? Was that James?
James.
Yeah. The city is under mandatory order from the Coastal Commission to clear homeless encampments from within 100 feet of all waterways. They use that to clear Union Point Park and the parking lot that's associated with that. So that order that the city is under applies also to the estuary here. And so I'm all in favor of using Measure DD funds because this is critical and we've got to get a hand and get an upper hand on this. But the city also has a responsibility to comply with the Coastal Commission's order as well. So they need to come up with some funds also.
Thank you, James.
I will just say, I agree with James that I think this area is critical. Like, I would love to see like some of the paths further down the channel fixed, but like if this area is unusable, then those don't matter.
Right.
Like that connecting piece is super important, and it's really hard to watch. To have been using these paths for years, and now sort of feel like I can't go there anymore. Katie.
Thank you, everybody. It's Katie Noonan, co-chair of Rotary Nature Center Friends. And I would like to second what David and others have said about the educational and community building importance of this area. And I'd like to enter into the record that Rotary Nature Center Friends has been the leading organization that has organized community stewardship in this area to clean up in the last 2 years, really. Involving and inviting others to join us, such as the Weed Warriors. And I've been, as a teacher, I have brought high school students down to this area. It's potential for teaching and for really getting young people involved in conservation efforts, and with that vision, it cannot be calculated. So I think that improving the access and making it safe is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and, if it's okay, I'm going to move us on to the next.
One last comment. I'll make this very short. And that is, when you develop your plan, I think we could include in that, or try to include in that, the macro unit of the city would make a patrol daily through the areas. Once we get the fences up and the gates and so forth, they might be the ones that would lock it at night, but that they be commissioned to come through once a day and make sure that there's nobody reestablishing a camp there.
Thank you. I've made note of that, James.
All right. Thank you so much. So moving on to waterfront access, parks and cleanup category. So the Park Street Bridge connection is on hold until we can work out easement acquisitions or figure out what can be done about the land on the north side of the bridge. The Fruitvale Land Crossing, Bay Trail segment construction will continue through this month. Paving work is complete and only the guardrail installation and planting work remain. Chris Reed is here at this meeting today and is the manager of this project. So thank you, Chris. So now we're on to Estuary Park, and I'll go ahead and invite the WRT team to give the the update on this. I can stop sharing my screen if you'd like to share yours. Should I stop and sharing, and then someone from the Estuary Park team would give a presentation?
Yeah, we can share screen.
Okay.
Okay, can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so Chris, do you want give a brief recap, or I can go ahead?
Yes, sure. So hello, everyone. I'm Christine Reed, Project Manager with Oakland Public Works Project and Grant Management Division. And as you all, most of you know, the city received a grant from the State Coastal Conservancy this year for shoreline enhancement planning, which included some technical studies and enhanced design for a resilient shoreline. We came, I believe it was the last meeting, we presented some preliminary concepts for that, and the design team has been very busy developing the technical studies and design. So we're just excited to share an update with you today. And I'm fighting a cold, so I'm going to keep mostly mute, but happy to answer questions if I can. Thank you.
Great, yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, as Chris mentioned, today's meetings, our focus will be primarily on providing the grant work updates, and together with ESA, we will present the preliminary shoreline design, technical findings, some project reference, and how it works with public access and activities. We will also include some long-term sea level rise challenge, particularly for the J-Lake area. So this is today's agenda. With that said, let's dive in. First, we would like to show the current status of our grant work. So we're concurrently working on some technical studies, schematic design, and CEQA compliance. With today's, a lot of progress have been made last 2 months, and after today's meeting, we will incorporate all the feedback and conclude the schematic design by the end of November, and move into 65% construction documentation stage. So this is over a timeline showing our current status. And this next page is our current site plan for Estuary Park project, which now includes a preliminary design for the shoreline enhancement. Is this south part? Following that, we have an overview section to show various zones for the shoreline enhancement. So ESA and us, our team will dive deeper into the specifics, but just a quick overview of these different zones. So first is subtidal and intertidal zone, which present opportunities for habitat enhancements. And the next one is the beach bridge, which is an active ridge working with the gravel beach to mitigate the wave and tides. The next one is a transitional to more upland, so including backshore, washover fans, and transitional backshore. Those zones accommodate public access and still allow for natural movement of the beach and provide resilient and no maintenance backshore. The right end of the section connects back to the upland park. So this showing Bay Trail, multi-purpose lawn, and the other park program. So this is just a quick overview, and now I can pass to ESA for a deeper dive into these different zones.
Hi, again, my name is Louis White with ESA. I'm a civil coastal engineer working on the WRT team here, and I'm presenting on behalf of some of the work that ESA has been doing. So last time we talked, we were kind of diving into some feasibility studies of habitat enhancements on the south shoreline of the park to create a more resilient feature. And utilizing a grant from the State Coastal Conservancy, we've been able to dial in and look at some specific resilience types of elements. And so what you can see here on the bottom picture on the left is the existing condition up at the park. The concrete rubble shore, and there's some gravel intermixed in that. And so one of the first feasibility studies we did was working with Peter Bay to consider local reference sites of similar in-bay beaches and the types of vegetation and morphology, and how might that look on the landscape here at Estuary Park. And so on the right, the pictures on the right are nearby local reference sites that kind of show how these little vegetated beach ridge establishes, typically backed by other vegetation. And so we've kind of used those reference sites to characterize how this site might be improved, the shore enhancements. Next slide. Similarly, we worked with the Smithsonian Institution out of the SERC, and specifically Chayla Zabin, who is an expert on intertidal organisms and oyster restoration, and has done a lot of work around San Francisco Bay, has been giving us advice on the project. And their review of the site conditions and the situation there at the existing site is that they're not recommending any oyster restoration because of the presence of some non-native species, the Atlantic oyster drill. And because of that, the abundance of that species, that she didn't recommend pursuing an oyster restoration because of just the unlikely to succeed. But she did note all the other types of plants, and it shifted a focus of intertidal elements to just a general goal of enhancing general biodiversity of intertidal organisms, which she notes has not been ever a goal of any of the restoration projects in San Francisco Bay. Next. And then finally, we work with Marine Taxonomic Services. They're eelgrass experts, and they had completed a side scan sonar of the site, and they did scuba diving surveys to look for existing eelgrass patches in the vicinity of Estuary Park, and they found none. And they did find that there's a significant amount of biodiversity, marine biodiversity, and made a lot of observations about the types of species that are active around the site. And then for eelgrass, what they did recommend was they pointed out that there's a high uncertainty whether eelgrass would succeed at the site, and for it to succeed, it would also require specific criteria, namely the correct depth and space. And so that would require building up part of the existing bed to the appropriate depth, just below low tide elevations, and then also importing the right kind of substrate. It's like a sandy clay substrate, which would then potentially support transplanted mature eelgrass. So we're still looking at and incorporating all that into the design. So next slide. So here is where our design concept currently is on the South Shore. And what you see here is this mixed sand and gravel beach. And starting from the top of the page where the Bay Trail curves around from the top, then there's some areas that are like transitioning from this highly recreational zone into more natural. And so we have these planted areas, and then moving across these backshore meadows with native grasses and other plants, and that also are interspersed with these what we're calling a sand and gravel washover, which are based on the natural analogs. And then as you move further toward the water, there's the vegetated beach ridges, and that's where we've located like a cobble mixture that can support a vegetation that grows in the cobble matrix with these like wood and other elements and other plants. And then in front of that is a gravel beach shore, which would be dynamic and respond to intermittent storm conditions. And then moving down into the water down the beach face, we get to an intertidal zone, which is that first the top row of rocks, which are it would be rocks with fucus that would be installed to try to let the fucus spread onto new rocks, and then also these other tide pool units, precast tide pool units that have been tested in the bay using types of concrete that are suitable for habitat colonization. And then down from that, it would go to an eelgrass bed, which would be built up to the right elevation, and then contained by a rock, like a rock dike, essentially, around the outside to provide a stable toe. And now on either side of this, perpendicular to the shore, are just these mounded, what we're calling a retention structure. It's a terrace retention with rock that would provide a containment of the beach during different types of potential events, storm events. And then there's two cross sections I want to point out. Can you please go back? There's two cross sections. There's one on the left, which is cut through the retention structure, and then there's another one that is shown in the middle of the section that goes through the middle of the beach. And now they're on the next slide. And so that top profile here, that's through the side of the site, through a retention, and it's just illustrated. It illustrates just how those rocks would be built up to contain the beach. Now I'll note we're essentially only excavating materials above high tide because of challenges, the expected challenges working through a process with regulatory agencies that govern some of the potentially contaminated materials at the site that were out there when it was filled. And so we're limiting the excavation to above high tide to remove that and then place clean sand and gravel, and then building the beach out onto the existing shore profile. And so the bottom section is cut through the middle of the beach. And so starting from the offshore on the left, there's the rock toe, and then the built up eelgrass platform. I'll note that dashed line at the bottom of the profile, and I know it's probably small on your guys' screens right now, but that's the existing grade. And so we would be building up several feet to get to that eelgrass elevation. And then moving landward, then there's an intertidal zone. And then further from that is where we hit the beach face up to an active beach berm, which is able to move under different coastal conditions, the intermittent storms, and then back to the other where there's the vegetated beach ridge and washover fan and meadow areas. And so here's just a few references, pictures from around the bay that provide some kind of examples of what we're thinking. So here's a beach in Richmond that is contained. It's along a rock revetment, and it was excavated and then sand was placed, and it's a pocket beach. So the beach is just kind of held in by the rock revetment on either side. Next. And here's some examples of where there's like this active beach, gravelly beach with this wood debris and other vegetation on a vegetated ridge and a washover fan as well. Next. Now these are other elements. On the left is precast tide pool units that were installed at Crane Cove in San Francisco. And, you know, we were thinking it doesn't have to be exactly this, but we were thinking of some sort of concrete units like that, which could provide some start to a tide pool and where intertidal organisms could start to colonize. And then on the right is a picture of some other types of concrete units made out of something called baycrete, which are used in a lot of oyster restoration projects. And then eelgrass that's in the foreground. Next. And now, very quickly, I was asked to talk about how this relates, all the ecological and morphologic factors relate to recreation. And so I'm not going to describe everything on this slide, but what we did was looked at something we've called geomorphic dynamism, which is essentially what is the change like and how fast do things change at this site. And so we've looked at these different habitat enhancement areas at different time scales, which are in each column. So there's a daily, an annual, and a decadal time scale. And the color gray means it's more stable, and the orangish yellow means it's highly dynamic. And so the next slide shows graphically these results. And so this shows on a short scale, on a daily time scale, that the gravel beach is the most dynamic. And then on the next slide here, this shows, okay, it's even during a storm will really impact that gravel beach area, and it may activate the washover fan backshore area. Next. And then over time with sea level rise, this is all going to migrate landward. And so by providing this, this area in the back, it allows some of the material to be pushed landward as you know, the intermittent storms push the gravel up and over the beach ridge into the area that's behind the trail, between the trail and the shore. And San's going to take it over and talk about some of that access stuff now.
Yeah, thank you, Louis. So next we want to talk about how the public access and activities overlay with this shoreline enhancements. So first we have developed like major access points from the park, like park access to the shoreline. So this include like the western edge, the major park access, and from this east pergola area as well. And this ADA accessible concrete path is provided to accommodate public access to the shoreline zone, which this will provide higher recreational use and some educational opportunity. So along this path, pockets of seating elements, viewing points, and like logs and informational signage are designed to provide opportunities for gathering, informal play, and public education about the nature-based shoreline habitats. Beyond this transitional zone, we are aiming at minimize the paved access to prevent interference with the natural movement Louis just described. So a more natural approach is proposed with only sand and gravel paths and some log steps as designated yet very informal access to the beach burn and gravel beach zones. So we have some sections showing different access opportunities here, like steps from the overlook, stepping stones from the Bay Trail, and gathering point, and this ADA accessible concrete path. We also provide some precedent images to show how each element will look like the sandy resting gathering pockets, and concrete seat wall, educational signage, driftwood and boulder for seating and informal play. And the next page showing this concrete path and more controlled planting zone, stepping log, and washover fan, which is mentioned for more informal access to the gravel beach. We also want to quickly touch on the planting strategy we developed with Peter Bay and ESA. So the planting palette is carefully studied based on the local precedent and character of different zones. So 3 major planting zones have been identified. The first one is this terrestrial mound, which is more upland, closer to the Bay Trail and higher recreational density. The second zone is low grass swell and flats. This zone will have some level of public access through informal gravel sand pathway. But to deter the trampling during the establishment period, we will consider planting stakes and brush matting, also some fallow rotation period. So the third zone is a vegetated beach ridge. Is characterized with higher ecological value compared to its recreational use. And some temporary fence will be considered around the planting zone to provide protection during the establishment period. We also include some planting pallets. We will not dive deep into, but yeah, just a quick look at the different zones. They have different planting species. And the first one, we will choose planting type next trampoline tolerant and low maintenance, offer seasonal color palettes, and also some annual native to restrict weed invasions. And the second zone is more terrestrial and lowland grassland, and also drought high salinity tolerant plants. Yeah, and we will also have swell to tolerant width, and trying to help more efficient drainage towards the beach. And the last one will be more burial tolerant on high salt marsh, and dominated by these perennial grasses and ball leaf plants for the beach ridge. Yeah, I think we also include the last part is a JLAC adaptation strategy. We have assessed the long-term challenge for sea level rise, focusing on this JLAC area, and identified short-term and long-term triggers, and also propose some adaptation pathway accordingly. So the goal here is not to provide design solution, but to identify the challenge and lay the foundation for the future designing and planning work. So due to the time constraint today, we will not dive deep into those pages, but this part is part of our deliverable for the grant work. We can share with everyone after today's meeting, so feel free to provide feedback on this long-term adaptation strategy as well. So yeah, with that being said, I think this concludes our project updates for today. And yeah, we welcome any questions you may have.
James, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting and informative presentation. I compliment you on your work and the progress you're making. So I don't have great criticism so much of the plans you've shown us. I would just make a comment that while you show a number of plants that are capable of being planted in the area, I think you should reduce your palette, and so that it's a nice mix, but to use minimum amounts, different types of plants, be much easier to maintain and so forth. I have one other comment about the proposal booklet that was published. I noticed that Measure DD is the father or mother of this project, and is a project where which will be funding the project. But I noticed in looking through the plans that Measure DD is mentioned only one time in a meeting long ago. And among the stakeholders, Measure DD is not mentioned. Measure DD is a major player here. We have made critical reviews, several times have sent in recommendations that have been incorporated in the plans. And Measure D is the major player in this. And I don't know why it's not mentioned. It's not mentioned among the stakeholders. Just in one little line does it come out. You got to correct that. That's got to be corrected.
That's an interesting comment, James. I was just looking, I'm almost certain we have Measure DD Coalition in our stakeholders list, but I will double check. And if we haven't, I would think what you're referring to is possibly the draft master plan. So I know there's a stakeholders sheet and as part of that, but I'll take a close look at that.
Measure D is not listed.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Thank you for that comment. Appreciate it.
Benny, you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Ken and Lewis. Very, very interesting. Is what you have just presented to us going to be available for us to study it and comment? And if so, how?
Yes, this presentation is a PDF, and last time around I shared that through Terry, I believe, or Mandolin, so I can do the same for this. Make sure it's circulating.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Bill?
We just spent a considerable period of time hearing the challenges that are being experienced by the city and Public Works along the channel in protecting the Measure DD improvements that are there. And we know the history with Union Point Park. I note you have some temporary fencing planned for some of the planting areas, but how will the same kinds of problems currently being experienced along the channel be addressed in the design for Estuary Park and specifically this region?
I know this has come up before. So I do believe that Estuary Park has some significant differences in that it's flanked, on one side to the west by a residential condominium complex, and to the right there's the Jacqueline Aquatic Center, which has regular programming and attendance throughout the week and throughout the year. So I do think that activated nature of this site is going to really work to our benefit. Access to the park itself in terms of vehicular access will be controlled. Pedestrian access obviously will be open, as part of the Bay Trail. It needs to remain open 24/7. So we're not going to control access to the park itself. But I do think, just given the nature of it, the programming, the higher visibility, it will benefit from that in a way that some of these other more isolated sites have not. Does that answer the question?
I understand what you've said.
Naomi?
First of all, I'm very excited to see this plan. I worked with the Coastal Conservancy for many years myself, and I'm glad that they decided to wade in. Just to piggyback on the previous comment that Bill made, I've been very involved at Mosswood, and having a full recreation program and people living across the street, and now a construction project. There are still homeless people in that extremely heavily used park. And it cannot by any stretch be called remote. So if there's people living in Mosswood, I don't think we should assume that this park will not also have that kind of issue. And, it does all come down to providing housing for people who need it. And I get that. But I would hate to see millions of dollars go down the tubes again on projects that cannot be maintained. So I'm feeling a little uneasy about it if there is no plan. And I guess that plan might have to do with people having to supervise the park in some sense or some other method. There have always been people living down around there, and there still will be. And I don't think we should count on the next door condo as the exclusive protection for the site, sad as I am to say that. But I really appreciate seeing these plans, and I will certainly look at them carefully. And I love that the city's finally confronting sea level rise as an issue with park design on the shore. So it's very exciting to see. Thank you.
Yeah, so just a quick response on that. Just as Chris mentioned, so the overall park activation with diverse programs and improved on the Bay Trail, we hope can help address the issue. And also want to underscore that the enhancement of the shoreline will not encourage the homeless encampment. So we understand this is a long-term issue and concern and rely heavily on the city policy, but we are committed to collaborate with the city to further address this through the design and hopefully to discourage any forms of encampment on site.
Yeah. David.
Thank you guys for that report. I found it very informative as well, but I was also humbled by all that you guys have gone through it and think about in order to create this vision, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate the comments that came before me, starting with what James brought up about the oversight, apparent oversight of recognizing Measure DD's role. And I'll note that I touched upon that earlier in terms of the apparent oversight of recognizing the Rotary Nature Center Friends role as people met and discussed dealing with the public safety issues they're running along the channel. Which my comment is that, well, one thing is that that's an issue that I'm dealing with in my work in a number of places throughout the city, and yet they continue to hold a tremendous amount of similarities and challenge. I wanted to note in the discussion around the Estuary Park that Christine didn't mention the north and south borders, which are south is bordered by water, and on the north it's bordered by the freeway. So that also creates a special dynamic in relationship to what happens there vis-a-vis the unhoused. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. Is it back to you, Terry?
Yeah. So that was Estuary Park. Now moving back to you, Rebecca and Calvin, for the Union Point Park discussion. So Union Point Park, 23rd Avenue Trail, aka Miller Milling, 7th to 23rd. Rebecca, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Okay. Okay.
Reporting on all these fun projects with all these challenges.
Yeah.
So I guess the big issue is that this trail proposed many years ago and looked at many years ago, stemming from the southern tip of Union Point Park all the way down to Park Street, Bridge, the issues that were not taken into consideration was the fact that it has to go through 3 private industrial properties, and the costs associated with acquiring easements is significantly higher than what was estimated at the beginning years ago by this project. And one of the owners, Outboard Motor, has emphatically stated that no trail can go through their property. They can't afford to lose any of their land to a public trail. So this project moved ahead with doing the environmental testing, and yes, this area with its long industrial history of more than 100 years of different industries here has many pollutants, and there are high lead levels in the Miller Milling portion of the site. Anyway, the long and the short of it is the Park Street Bridge trail connection, which seems doable based on meeting with the mariners, the professional boat captains that ply their barges up and down this channel, that for permitting with the Environmental Protection Agency, along with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the 2 sites are locked at the hip. I can't build Park Street Bridge without having a place to land on the north side of the bridge, and the trail has to be able to continue all the way down to meet the Park Street Bridge trail connection. So the order of magnitude of costs are here on the screen, and they're actually slightly higher, closer to 52 million for a solution that would carry the trail out over the water, not doing anything on land at Outboard Motor. And then 54 plus million if the city were to purchase the Outboard Motor property and essentially condemn it and turn it in for public use, and then potentially sell off other portions of it. But the amount of time needed to pull all of this together, never mind the funding, is looking at like a 9-year time duration between the permitting, between the coordination between all of these different property owners, the real estate negotiations. So I don't know, Terry, this hasn't been presented yet to city council members or any of the other folks, for instance, Council Member Gallo, and whose district we're in here.
Right. So James, I see your hand. I just wanted to say that to the community coalition that we, Calvin and Rebecca and I have been discussing this project, and we think we need to do some internal outreach to all the stakeholders internally. We still need to meet with East Bay Regional Park District staff. And I have told everyone who's involved, especially Calvin and Rebecca, that both Dee Rosario and Rick Ricard have been very interested in meeting with us to discuss how to be successful with this project. And I know that, John, you have weighed in about that as well. So we feel that our next step is to reach out internally to to explain the site constraints and to make sure that we understand the direction that city management would have for us regarding these projects. And now I will stop talking, go to James and then John.
You know, we've been talking and talking about this particular stretch of the Bay Trail for almost 20 years.
Yes.
And nothing has moved. Nothing has moved. We're still where we are.
Well,
let me just continue. I don't know how much we've spent in just meetings and conversation, but it's clear that those businesses, many of those, still use the water. They have boats that come in and they get serviced from that side. Even if we struck a trail through them, through those building properties, it has to be closed at 5 o'clock. And it's just not feasible. We need to just bite the bullet, return the trail to the sidewalk, go around these buildings and up to Park Street on the sidewalk. And then people who want to continue to dream about what they could do here, going through these properties, can continue to do that. But we need to move on. And I think the only way we move on is just to return the trail to the sidewalk and go on the public sidewalk over to Park Street. And let's get done. We're spending too much time, too much money, and nothing is changing in all these years.
Can I just verify that when you say return the trail to the sidewalk, are you saying that the measured DD should invest funds to do that? Or are you saying that are you suggesting that this would no longer be a measured DD project and the city, some other entity in the city, would work on establishing a trail that goes around these properties? I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying, James. Are you saying that you would be in favor of spending measured DD funding to try to make the trail happen?
Yes.
Going around?
Yes,
okay.
We can widen the sidewalk where we need to make it accommodate the Bay Trail, and just go back to the public right away, because it's impossible. We're not going to be able to bring these buildings into these companies into line, and we're spending too much time, too much money, and this is taking up too much of our attention. And let's just revert the trail to the public right away, and do the design on the public right away to get to Park Street.
Okay, thank you, James. John, I think you were next.
Yeah, the point I wanted to make was that I think it is premature to abandon the original plan, as James suggests that we do, without taking into account the role that the East Bay Regional Park District could play as a partner for at least this part of the trail. I think it is very significant to keep in mind that the East Bay Regional Park District is the owner of the land underneath the estuary. That's what happened. It used to be, all this submerged land used to be owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. And then the Army Corps of Engineers transferred ownership of the land underneath the estuary to the city of Alameda on the city of Alameda's side of the estuary, and to the city of Oakland on the Oakland side of the estuary. And then Oakland turned around and transferred its part of the estuary to the East Bay Regional Park District. It is not clear to me that the plans or the discussions that have occurred up to now have given the consideration that needs to be given to the role that the East Bay Regional Park District can play as a partner in pursuing a shoreline route for the Bay Trail at this location. So my strong opinion and suggestion is that at least until those discussions with the East Bay Regional Park District have occurred, it is premature to simply abandon the original alignment for the trail that we have all tried to see happen here.
Thank you. Who was next? I think it was Jenny and then Di Rosario.
Yeah, that's correct.
I'd like to suggest that we set a date now, like February or pretty soon. It's sort of a, if we can't make progress and if there's not something miraculous that the East Bay Regional Park District can do, and Dee, we'll look to you to say that we do something along the lines of what James is saying. I want the specter of screwing around with this for 9 years, having Measure DD trickle out for 9 years. I mean, Terry is going to be an old woman by the time this is done. This is, I want you to take the long view here. The Appalachian Trail is over 100 years old. They are still working on the alignment, going around places where 30 years ago they couldn't get an easement. It wasn't workable. The Bay Trail is a project that is going to for many years. As long as these businesses are vibrant, great, work around them. At some point, it may be possible to achieve what we all wish for, but knocking our heads against the wall for 9 years doesn't make sense. And it doesn't take into account that this is a project, the Bay Trail, I was speaking about the Bay Trail generally, but this element in particular that can't over time be improved as circumstances change. So please, let's set a date. And I look to you, Terry, to do this, to say, fish or cut bait, and we move on from there if we can't achieve something other than knocking our heads against the wall. Sorry to be a downer there, but that's my thought.
Right, and just to respond to that, I would like to, so, as I said, Calvin and Rebecca and I have been huddling about this, and we are going to do some communication internally about this. We're going to meet with East Bay Regional Park District staff, and then based on that, I'll come back with a recommendation for a date by which we need to make progress, if indeed that's where we go with this. So Dee, you go next.
Great, thank you. I think I can shed some light here. I just recently met with our head of ASD, which is Acquisition, Stewardship, and Design, and that includes Sean Dugan and their whole team. And we took a tour out here, and this is the hard piece. And so what we found out was that outboard motor used to be at 9th Street, and the Port of Oakland forced them to move. And in exchange, they got they bought this property where they're at now. It's theirs. And so barring a 9-year wait for, I'm pretty sure my staff at Regional Parks is it's not doable. Okay. So yeah. So that's I'm sure you can just give a phone call to Sean Dugan, and I'm sure he will say the same thing, that this is what we can do, just like as Jenny Girard suggests, is abandon this for now and go around, and then if something happens in the very near future or into the distant future, we take advantage then. But I think regional park staff feels that this is insurmountable as far as these two properties, Miller Milling and Outboard Motor.
Thank you so much for saying that, Dee. When we met with them previously, one of the things that they did say to us is along the lines that Jenny was just covering, which is they're in it for the long haul. East Bay Regional Park District, this is the mission of the district, and it may make sense for the city to kind of hand over the idea of this project to East Bay Regional Park District to try to achieve in 10, 20 years when things change, right?
Yeah.
And that is what makes the most sense to me for sure. And just you coming to the group today and explaining this has been very helpful. I don't know, Calvin or Rebecca, if you want to say anything else before we go? Or before we move on from this?
I concur with all of what Dee has just said, which is this was an undertaking people didn't understand way back in 2005 when the conceptual plan was studied for this, for the whole trail section. And Oakland is fighting fiercely to hang on to its industrial property because it's continuing to shrink. And these properties, many of these properties service not only the waterfront, but provide so the gravel and sand businesses further south are all important aspects to the Port of Oakland. So there are many reasons to yes, go around these businesses for the foreseeable future to make that link happen as best as can be done. But that this undertaking here, the costs and the durations just make it well, I mean, it's beyond challenging. It seems kind of crazy.
Well, thanks everyone for that discussion. I feel very grateful. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for all the work you've done to investigate this as more thoroughly than anyone has been able to do thus far. You were able to get to hire that consultant that gained access to the site so we could do the hazardous materials assessment, and then you did you got the cost estimate
right, for acquisition and easements,
right, to try to do all of it. And so that has been really helpful and has really helped me understand the direction I think we should go in for this project. So I guess next steps are officially, I think we need to just check in with the powers that be at the city and just inform them about this conversation. I mean, I know there remain folks who are interested in seeing the city continue to work towards success, but I just don't think that it's going to be possible. And I think that Dee Rosario's statement tonight has been very important to me to kind of step forward and say, I think we should let go of this project. But we will talk about this internally, just make sure that we communicate with the necessary folks here within city government. And I welcome any additional comments you all may have, but I would like to look at shifting this project to being one that would go, on the streets on the other side of these properties. So.
And I also wanted to add, because it's always been a concern of mine since I started on this back a year ago, or a year and a half ago, it's public safety. That the issues of public safety along a trail that is supposed to be open 24/7 But this distance of some 1,800 feet from East 7th Street down to Park Street Bridge is hard, you know, there's nothing there between the water and the buildings. These are industrial sites that close down at night. And the safety issues along here are significant, never along with homeless. But the ability to, we would have to wall off the trail from these industrial properties to keep the properties safe. And it's just, it's a very difficult situation to put a public trail through here under these conditions.
Okay, so thank you, Rebecca. Unless anyone else has any other comments, I think we should move on. I just noticed that it is 8:48. So thanks.
There's nothing, you don't need me for anything more, right?
I think not. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And thank you, Calvin, as well, for being here. This is your introduction to the Measure DD Community Coalition. And yeah, he's the acting manager. So he works closely with both Rebecca and Chris Reed, who are, I think, doing a great job of managing these projects. So
all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Calvin.
Thanks.
Thank you, Calvin. Okay, so let's move on to these are we did get an update from East Bay Regional Park District on some projects that were funded in the past using DD funding and have been transferred to East Bay Regional Park District. The Crowley site, they're in preliminary design phase for that project. They're gathering site information and will be applying for a US DOT and RAISE program funding or grant for trail extension across the property. Gallagher and Burke, there are no discussions underway to move forward with this project. So that'll be maybe a longer haul section of the Bay Trail. Hanson Aggregates, this is the Home Dock properties. Negotiations are still underway for a trail easement. And then, as you know, we were not able to complete the waterfront trail connection at the High Street Bridge. And therefore we signed that project over to East Bay Regional Park District. They are investigating other options to connect the trails to go around High Street, a waterfront trail connection underneath. Oh, I already said that. So that's the update there. And so moving on to creek and waterway restoration, the Cortland Creek project. The construction officially will be completed in spring of 2024. All channel work was completed by October 31st. Revegetation is underway and will be completed in January. Trails, benches, fences, and signs to be installed in early 2024. And these are just some pictures showing the progress. It's pretty amazing, the transformation in the two main reaches, the Congress Reach and the Brookdale Reach. And then this is the Thompson Reach, which is a much lighter touch, but they did put in this new seating along the creek and some vegetation improvements. So that's been an exciting project. The Glen Echo Creek restoration has been on hold due to staffing shortages. We're going to try to get to starting this back up in fall of 2024. So acquisitions, the consultant will soon deliver a model of prioritized parcels for acquisition, and then we'll pursue acquisition opportunities. I had thought maybe Mike could come and give a presentation on this program at this meeting, but I'm thinking maybe we could do that in January if the coalition is interested. Conservation easement monitoring planned for January. So then this Beaconsville, the next project on the creek restoration list is Beaconsville branch of Sassel Creek. And we can't move on this at this time until we can start making some more progress on the Glen Echo project. So that's the update there. As I mentioned, I am so sorry that I am not ready to handle the fiscal conversation, but I am making progress, and I will, now that I have some help from the finance department, and they, like I said, they've hired this new person, a new position who is specifically there to help people like me who are managing the Measure DD fund and the bond. And so I will be holding several meetings with Stephen Acker and the fiscal staff who is helping me keep track of all of the expenses so that we can sort everything out and come to you in January with an update. And as I said, I plan to invite Stephen Acker to the meeting so that we can really talk about the conceptual or proposed spending plan for Series D funds. So go ahead, John.
Well, I just wanted, Terry, before you finished, I just wanted to make a quick comment about the flood control on the Lake Merritt Channel. We sort of skipped over that at this meeting. I would like you to be prepared to talk about that situation in January. You know, the flood control district responded to the list of questions that Mike sent to them, and those responses were attached to the minutes September meeting. I've just had a couple of days to take a look at those responses. I have some preliminary thoughts that I'll just hold in abeyance until we have a better chance to talk about them in January. But my thought is that I would like Mike to continue to be willing to serve as an intermediary or go-between between us and the flood control district, because having the city involved in these information requests is what is going to make it possible for us to get responses to our questions.
Gotcha. And I'll tell you that I am the intermediary. I worked hard to get those responses, and I think that what they told me is that they are very, very, very understaffed, and they apologize for that taking so long. And I just was tenacious with them to try to get those responses. So I am sorry it took so long, and yes, we will, both Mike and I will continue serving to communicate your questions. We can communicate with the district on your behalf.
No, I appreciate that. And I simply want to say that I thought that the flood control district was almost entirely responsive to the questions. There are simply a couple of areas of clarification that I think need to be addressed.
Do you want to put those in writing, and we'll try to get those answered before the next meeting? Or
okay, I could do that. We sort of have a informal subgroup comprised of myself and Adrian and Katie Noonan. So maybe we'll be able to get something figured out among the three of us and get something to you in the near future. And if we can get those clarifications in time for the January meeting, that would be great.
And if you wanted to, I don't know if you want to meet, if you wanted to bring me into a meeting so that I can hear all of the discussions, so that it might help me communicate really clearly with the flood control district. So just let me know if you want me to be in on a meeting, but otherwise provide the information to me in writing. And also we can talk about it at the January meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. David.
Thank you, Terry, for that great report again. Since you've been at this work, I've really appreciated all that you brought to the process and the information you bring to the reports. This question is to you and to John, who just spoke. Would it be useful for the flood control district to be relieved or turn over operations of the flood control gates at Lake Merritt? That way they could free up staff time and budget to, managing the rest of the district.
David, they own that facility. So it would, I think that would involve the city acquiring title to that facility. I'm not saying I think that's a bad idea. Actually, there are a lot of reasons why I think that would be a good thing to see happen. But it would take a lot of both planning and both planning and financial resources to carry out.
And something as significant as a transfer of title, from what you're saying. I was just thinking of something simply as a plan being created for when the gate should be open and when they should be closed, and then someone else providing the staff, if you will, that opened and closed the gate.
Well, that's what we're trying to do by getting answers to these questions that we've raised. We want to know are the protocols for when those tie gates are open and when they're closed. And that's what we're working on right now. Once we have that information, once we have a clear understanding of what the flood control district's protocols are for when those gates are open and when they're closed, then we'll be able to take the next step and see what we want to do about that information. But we got to get some basic, an understanding of what considerations does the flood control district take into account in deciding when those gates are open and when they're closed. It is an objective of Measure DD to enhance the tidal flow between the Oakland Alameda Estuary and Lake Merritt. That's one of the reasons that Measure DD was passed. And the manner in which that flood control facility is operated has a significant effect on one of the main purposes that Measure was passed. And so we're not running off into left field, raising questions that are only tangential to the purposes of Measure DD. We're dealing with an issue that I think is central to the reasons that Measure DD was initially enacted.
Thanks.
Okay, are we done?
All right. I meant to go off mute. I noticed various of the announcements have ended up in chats. There was one other item, the Lake Merritt quality, that was on the agenda.
Can we put that forward to the next meeting, Adrian? Sorry to interrupt, but it is 9 o'clock and I need to go. Also, there's obviously an issue with this agenda this time, and I will make sure that does not happen next time. But there was, it says here, has my name. I somehow missed that. I knew that this was going to be on the agenda, but then I didn't read this in detail. It says the San Francisco Water Quality Control Board has begun a long overdue process to create a TMDL. I just want it to be known that I did not write that or want to discuss that. I think that must be someone else who wanted to discuss that, and I just was wondering whose agenda item that should be. Because
I
it's
think that
not
was
my
I
agenda
think it
item.
was Dr. I think it was Dr. Bailey's.
Okay, gotcha, understood. So that is, if we could talk about this at the next meeting, we will have, maybe at the next meeting, what could happen is I can bring our, the project manager for that project, Jennifer Stern, to the meeting, and she can give a little update
That'd be
on
great.
it. Yeah, and we can, correct the agenda. Yeah, and if I'm not sure that, well, I'm not sure that, I mean, definitely if this group would like to discuss the TMDL, maybe that would just have to be covered by someone else. That is not something that the city is focused on discussing, right? And it's not really
I
a
have no
measure
idea.
project to get a TMDL going. And so I just am not sure if that makes sense to discuss that at a DD meeting.
Sure. So I think we need to get you agenda items earlier so you can review them and say whether or not you're going to talk to them. I think that's the communication issue here. So.
And it was my mistake, and I do apologize. And what I'm going to do is take over all of the communication, so I don't lose the thread of it, and like communicate directly with the agenda committee, so we're all on the same page. And yeah, thank you so much. And Bill,
Are we doing announcements now? Or are we in your report? Where are we on the agenda?
So I think Terry, you have to go, and I think we can do the announcements.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, Terry. Do you all who have announcements? Katie, do you want to talk about your next event? I know you posted it in the chat.
Sure. Actually, I think David did, but just wanted to let everybody know we have a lakeside chat coming up on December 1st. We're going to have a talk about birding in the nation's first wildlife refuge by Clay Anderson. And also, we have the recording of Andrew Cohen's talk about the mystery oyster in San Francisco Bay. It's now available on YouTube at the link that's provided in the chat. And not to be missed, the Rotary Nature Center Friends is going to have an event at the Oakland Main Library in person next Tuesday, the 28th, talking about things that we've done, particularly about the iNaturalist activities and looking at what's coming back after the big fish kill, and just how the community has been involved through our organization. So we welcome everybody to drop by. It's 6 to 7:30 officially at the Oakland Main Library on Tuesday, the 28th.
Great. The next item was about the duck ponds being empty. Sonomia posted an update about that on their website. That's linked from the agenda.
Oh, that's cool. Could you tell us what did she say?
I'm not gonna. I'm exhausted. So I posted it in the chat.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
It's been there for a while, so
it's been there in the chat for a while.
No, it's been up on the website for a while.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
Jenny, do you want to talk Weed Warriors?
Oh, that one, yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Just what I put in the chat is just to tell you that we're continuing our work along the west side of the lake, where the entrances from the street to the park trail occur. This time it will be, if you'll come meet us on December 2nd at 9 a.m., 9 to 12, we'll be working starting at Lakeside Drive, across from the entrance of Snow Park. And I hope to see you there. 9 to 12, All you have to do is bring your energy. We've got gloves, snacks, tools. You just come on down.
I urge all coalition members to recognize the change in coordination of the Weed Warriors that is taking place as Jenny steps back and hands off that responsibility to Galen Quaring. And we need to think back and recognize Jenny's pioneering work in this area starting in 2010 and has been leading this effort through the Deadheaders as it was founded, to the Master Volunteers as it evolved, and then finally to the Weed Warriors. 13 years of marvelous service, and we should all recognize it.
Thank you very much, Bill. I wish I could say there were no more weeds, but that doesn't the case.
Weeds are eternal. Bob, did you want to say anything about?
Yes, I just wanted to let you all know, because we have been in this group following many, many things. And over the years, we've all seen that we really need public-private effort. And we're having the final Conservancy Movement meeting December 6th at the 1200 Lakeshore Building. And you're all invited. I've left a notice and a link in the chat. But I think we all learned tonight, 20 years is a long time to be pursuing a lot of things. Maybe we could do it a lot faster with a conservancy movement. Thank you.
This meeting is going to be in a beautiful penthouse.
Yes, Steve Diamond, the owner of is very much concerned about the lake, and is sponsoring this. There'll be dinner, not dinner, but snacks, 5:30 to 7:30 on December 6th. Come by.
Myra, have you been keeping track of tasks, or Hazel?
Not, it was just all the things that we haven't gotten to this time, basically. I think Terry kind of knows. The fiscal report, Tide Gate operations. This your new bond manager, right? Stephen Acker is going to come.
She's got
that's right, she's not here, so that's Lake Merritt Water Quality Management. And, you know, possibly talking about the, oh, that's what that is. So Terry had said she might present on possible locations at City Hall for a hybrid meeting.
Yeah.
And there's some Bay Trail issues. Yeah.
And some Bay Trail issues. Oh, and Mike is going to talk about acquisitions. I think that's what that project manager item was.
And maybe she's coming back about public safety questions along 10th Street Channel.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that usually 10th Street is usually part of our report. So.
And I want to make sure she reports back on the plans for the pathway around Lake Merritt.
Oh, yeah, that's, yeah.
All right. If there's nothing else, I will thank you all for attending and all your comments and questions and intelligence about this.
Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanksgiving to everybody.
Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Yes.
Happy Turkey Day.
You guys are so amazing. I'm so thankful to know you.
Likewise.
Thankful for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hazel, for support.
I guess we should also say Happy New Year, because we won't see one another till.
Yeah. Oh, well, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Holidays.
we might have.
Get them all.
Yeah. Anything you celebrate, have a happy time.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe MLK Day, I'm not sure, but I guess that would be included too. President's Day.
Oh, no, we'll meet before then.
Oh, okay, good.
We meet on MLK, but
Oh, do we?
Oh, I thought we
Aye.
fixed that. I thought we fixed that meeting on
fix that.
MLK.
Maybe we should, I should look at that. Actually, I don't know that we have.
Okay.
Done.
All right.